seems like Twitter's push for The Last of Us Part 2 has failed. Ghost of Tsushima with its player's choice at the Game Awards. Twitter, of course, is now angry and sad and depressed as The Last of Us Part 2 with horrible characters like Abby that nobody likes. Even people who have not played the game do not like Abby. She's such a horrible character that she trends beyond, that's people who played the game. Which not many people played the game after it came out because nobody bought the game because the game is saying that on sales, not selling. So obviously no one is buying the game. So go to the Tsushima with its Player's Choice Award over Neil Cuckmann's The Last of Us Part 2. Ghost of Tsushima was the first way the Game of Year's award stupid Player's Choice ahead the later event to see that as a change success that was fired by a public vote. Ghost Bad to beat The Last of Us Part 2, which that was the big one. Hades was a game that I'm surprised was even nominated for Game of the Year because I know Nintendo promoted it, but I haven't even heard of it until Nintendo promoted it. Surprised it was even very popular on Steam. And Doom Eternal, and it also beat out Miles Morales. I don't know why that was really not on that list. Okay, they could have put many much better games than Miles Morales on there. Of course, we all know the Game Awards. They love Sony too much. Okay, again, Xbox had no games this year, and Nintendo did put out remakes of like Xenoblade and Pikmin. So, there weren't really many options. Again, Animal Crossing should have been on that list, but they didn't want to put that on the list. But they're also the butter. Ghost Team was also the butter of the awards. But we all know the journalist awards, which is the other ones. The 5 people on the journalist, and the 5 people on Twitter, CNN, MSNBC, and all those mainstream media votes. Kotaku, which gave Doki Doki Literature Club Game of the Year. Okay, one of the worst games of the year. Okay, they gave it Game of the Year over Breath of the Wild. They seriously gave Doki Doki Literature Club. I think it was either Best Game of the Year or Best Indie Game of the Year. But if they gave it Best Game of the Year, they gave it over Breath of the Wild, which is absolutely stupid to give that pile of garbage. But again, that's gaming journalists in a nutshell. They give it a pile of garbage a better score than a game that was way better and way betterly crafted than a bunch of, anime girls, talking to you. They really call that Game of the Year, but we're not talking about 2013 anymore. But Doom Eternal, again, probably better than Last of Us Part 2. All those games are probably better than Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 is a horrible experience, beginning to end. Horrible experience. And again, the Neil Cuckmann's fan were like, oh, you don't know Sony because you never played Get. Okay, but I don't want to play The Last of Us Part 2. I'm never going to play it because I know the game is horrible. Because everybody else told me it is. Why would I want to play a game that everybody else tells me it's horrible? I haven't played Superman 64 or Bubsy 3D. Doesn't mean I want to play them. Doesn't mean I want to go my way and get a PS1 or N64 to play them. I don't want to experience a bad experience. If someone tells me it's a movie, if it's for free, I can watch it, like on TV or something. But if it's like a game we have to go out of your way to get a console. Okay, Bubsy 3D is like $50. Say for Superman 64, I'm not gonna pay $50 for a horrible experience. I think no one would want to pay $50 for Bubsy 3D or Superman 64 or The Last of Us Part 2. And you look at The Last of Us Part 2, at stores it isn't selling. No one's buying The Last of Us Part 2. Okay, even on Black Friday, on the PlayStation section, you had like 5. I think there were like. For once, there was 0 copies of The Last of Us Part 2 at the store I went to. But usually, at the store, you saw 6 or 7 copies of The Last of Us Part 2. And Neil Cuckmann, the director of, now that he's co-president of, Naughty Dog, was, attacking fans for not selling the game. Okay? for not playing the game as Game of the Year. And you see stuff like this. Buy free games. Get one The Last of Us Part 2 for free because no one wants to buy it. Here, The Last of Us Part 2 surplus versus Ghost of Tsushima Week 2. They have so many copies of this game because no one is buying it. Same thing with Captain Marvel when that came out. They had so many copies of Captain Marvel. Because they say, oh, it made $1.1 billion. You have to order thousands of copies of Captain Marvel, and guess what? See, those still follow those copies of Captain Marvel are still seeing that on store shelves. Same thing with The Last of Us Part 2. Still seeing that on store shelves. This is Ghost of, I think this is Ghost of Tsushima. This is The Last of Us Part 2. Okay? Look at this. Ghost of Tsushima has way less copies than The Last of Us Part 2. And you wonder why it won People's Choice of the Year. This is Last of Us Part 2. Yo. And no one's buying it. No one's buying it. At Walmart, no one's buying it. This is in America. No one's buying it. Anywhere. No one cares about The Last of Us Part 2 except for Neil Cuckmann, Twitter, and Twitter fans. The 5 people on Twitter, basically, are the only ones buying The Last of Us Part 2. This is another one. Yo. Fell off of the top. It's not selling the PS Store either. No one's buying The Last of Us Part 2. You know, no one's buying this game. Okay? No one bought Captain Marvel when that movie came out. No one bought Battlefield 5. Battlefield 5 is still saying that on shelves collecting stuff with Captain Marvel and The Last of Us Part 2. Okay? Even Dark Fate sold better than Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, like Ghostbusters 2016, the same thing Ghostbusters 2016. You see copies of Ghostbusters 2016, 10 to 20 copies, 8 copies sitting down on the shelves. Because no one wants to buy it. No one wants to buy Ghostbusters 2016. It just sits there collecting dust because no one wants to buy it. Same thing with The Last of Us Part 2. This is another one. Though it's different. This is Ghost of Tsushima Day 1. This is The Last of Us Part 2. This is supposed to be Game of the Year? The Last of Us Part 2? This is supposed to be the Game of the Year and no one is buying it? Okay? Even Sword and Shield sold and people hated that game. Sword and Shield sold well and people hated that game. Okay? Here. Here's another store. The Last of Us Part 2. Not selling. No one's buying it. No one cares about The Last of Us Part 2. Okay? But the game apparently sold 4 million copies. But they can't get to sell it after 4 million. Okay? Here. This is in the store in Australia. Okay? And Scientific Reset are trying to figure out, why is The Last of Us Part 2 not selling? Why is The Last of Us Part 2 not selling? You look at the UK Black Friday starts for physical games. But to say for digital games, no one is buying The Last of Us Part 2 on physical or digital. Okay? Both. No one is buying it. Yep, there we go. So Ghost of Tsushima wins the People's Award. Not The Last of Us Part 2. It's holding into zero after copies just sitting there, not selling. And Neil Cuckmann's wise about, they had to raise the 5 people on Twitter army to attempt to steal the Game Awards, but they couldn't do it. They'll still steal the standard awards, but Ghost of Tsushima won the only award that mattered. The award that The Last of Us Part 2 lost in. So that's basically it. Goodbye.